If you're a student in the city of Toronto and you've tried to rent anywhere off campus, I'm sure you already know this, but rent is extremely expensive and extremely competitive. I'm filming this video on August 31st, the last day before the big September 1st deadline for a lot of students looking to find housing in Toronto. And why is that a big deadline? Well, the key reason is classes start in September. So most students are always aiming to move into their next home by September 1st. So when classes begin, they're able to go to school, no problem. They've been settled into their homes and they can finally focus on their studies for the upcoming school year. Now, where this premise of all students wanting to find housing for September 1st becomes a problem is the fact that it's all bunched up. There is a huge demand of international students, people moving to downtown Toronto to be close to classes. It's all bunched up to essentially 2 months of the year. People are looking in July, in August, but everyone's looking for that September 1st move-in date, maybe slightly before. I bet you if you're a student right now in Toronto, you definitely know one or two groups of people who are actively looking for their next home before the school year starts. Now, when all these students are all looking for housing the same time of the year to July and August, it's very predictable on every single year when rent prices do shoot up. Let's use a 2-bedroom layout, for example, a very popular layout because a lot of people will get roommates, especially when they're in university, in college, split rents. You look at the numbers over here, over the 2022 and 2023, the 2 months where rents are at their highest, we don't have our updated numbers for 2023 just yet, are in July and August. And I wouldn't be shocked if we're going to see numbers peak in August. And you'll notice if we look at the 2022 numbers, once August is over and September hits, rents flatten out because we've already passed September. Students, majority have found their properties. Demand basically falls off a cliff. Now, where I'm really concerned when it comes to the rents in Toronto is more the long-term outlook of looking at these trends. The fact that every single year around this time, prices go up. Is the fact that students are probably the most motivated group of people, especially students that are coming from a different country who do not have any roots in the city where you have no place to stay. The most motivation we're going to get from people looking for housing is going to be them because they have a hard date, a hard deadline of September 1st. I need to have a place by then. So they're the most motivated people to overpay, outbid, be competitive, offer more rent up front, whatever it is. They're the most motivated to do that in order to find that place for December 1st because for them, their education is extremely important and it's a must. Now, the only outlier that we really have is in 2020. And we all know what happened in 2020 when the world shut down and essentially we saw rents, plummet. They were much lower than they were the year earlier. We didn't see that big jump ups in rent in the summertime because students weren't going to live by a campus. People were all online. People were virtual. People could be either, if they were local, domestic, if they're international, they didn't have to live downtown or nearby the university or college because they were able to stay home and do their entire education online. Now, the question I want to ask, more of a hypothetical because I don't really have an answer to it, is what roles do universities and colleges in Toronto, in Ontario, what roles do they have in providing students housing? Because in the end, it's apparent what's driving a lot of these rent prices is students coming and they're all kind of looking at the same time. The demand is peaking during that time. Why aren't they having a more predominant role in housing? I know there are dorms, and I know that they provide housing for a lot of first-year students, but most of the time, these universities, the moment the first year is done, people go off campus. People have to go off campus because there's not enough housing. How is it possible that we're getting so many more international students and so many domestic students getting accepted into these programs, but they're not being provided housing from the universities and colleges that are benefiting from their admission? A really good graph to look at over here is showing the number of study permits that were allowed in Ontario over the past few years, with 2020 being its lowest because COVID, obviously, people did not need to come to the city. But the moment 2021 and 2022 hit, the influx of new study permits shot up for colleges, most particularly universities went up as well. And I know in 2023, the number is high as well. So there's a ton more people in these college programs, in these university programs, but there's no housing being provided for these people because, well, to be fair, the huge influx and admissions, there's no way they can provide housing. But they're allowing these admissions for these people where there's not going to be enough housing for them. So, these colleges are benefiting from extra admissions, but they're not providing the adequate housing or at least playing their fair share in helping these college students and these university students have housing, having affordable housing, and keeping the rental market not from exploding. One last number is Canada as a whole in 2022 accepted 800,000 international student study permits, while this year they expect to receive over 900,000 in study permits. So there is an increase from 2022 to 2023. We keep increasing the amount of people that are coming here. But is it fair for these people to come here and not be able to provide them adequate housing? We're getting to the point where different ministers on a federal level are talking about capping international students coming into the country every single year for the sake of a couple of things, talking about the immigration system and also the housing crisis. So it's gotten to the point where people have taken a little bit of a notice and they're thinking to themselves, if we can't provide housing to these people, we should not be letting them in. And although there's probably different conflicting opinions on it, it's definitely something that's taken notice on the federal level. Although I'm not myself educated on what that number should be and how many people we should be letting to the country on an international student basis, but when 2% of people in the country are international students, there definitely needs to be a plan from university and colleges to be able to provide housing for these people. Because the moment you're not able to provide housing for these people, it bleeds into the rest of the housing market and everyone's struggling with higher rents, higher prices overall, especially with a higher interest rate. But the rents itself is where people are coming to the country as entry level. They're not buying properties. They're going to rent their first home. And that's pushing the entire rental market into up. And it will keep going up until time will tell, because the motivation will always push people out of the market. But that's my 2 cents. So thank you for listening to my rambling. That's just something that I thought would be important to talk about. We're getting the official numbers for August on how rents have changed month over month in the next 2 weeks. So a video is going to come out of that shortly, and I'll probably talk about this a little bit more, but I thought it'd be a good video to get out here. If you don't know, my name is Gabriel Batista, Homes into Reality. I am a real estate agent in the Toronto area, talking about being a first-time buyer in the Toronto real estate market every single week. So if I can do anything to help you on your end, find your first home, you let me know, and happy to help on that end. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your day. Take care as always. Happy fall. Bye, summer.